Hello, and welcome to Glanbia's Dairy Focus. This is the first episode of 2022 and therefore Happy New Year, but also a good time to look ahead at the year that's coming. And in a few weeks' time, on the 20th of January, there is an important date in the veterinary medicine legislation. On that date, a new European-wide veterinary medicines legislation comes into effect. And one of the big changes in that legislation is that prescriptions issued for antibiotic treatments for animals will only be valid for 5 days. This is not only for new prescriptions issued from the 28th of January onwards, but also for prescriptions that are currently already in place. They too will only be valid for 5 days from the 28th of January. So on the 2nd of February, they will expire. This is all part of a European-wide approach to reducing the development of antibiotic resistance in both healthcare and veterinary medicine. In this episode, we explore what makes up a good quality calf milk replacer. When choosing a calf milk replacer instead of whole milk to feed your replacement heifers, it's important to take into consideration the protein content of that calf milk replacer. Research has now shown that if calf milk replacer contains between 23 and 26% crude protein, the milk production of those animals in their first lactation will be higher compared to animals that were fed lower levels of crude protein in the milk replacer when they were calves. But from a calf's growth perspective, it's not just the crude protein level that's important. It's also the type of protein that's contained within that milk replacer. Calves up to the age of 4 weeks old, more or less, cannot digest plant-based protein. So they are solely dependent on milk-derived protein being included in that calf milk replacer. Skim milk powder or whey protein concentrate would be ideally used, and that might not always be declared on the calf milk replacer list of ingredients. But you may be able to find out that if the fibre content of the calf milk replacer is increased compared to some other ones, that fibre is actually coming from plant-based products being included in that powder. Now, the protein isn't the only thing that makes up the calf milk replacer quality, obviously, and compared to whole milk, calf milk replacer is actually going to be a little bit low in fat, so the energy content in calf milk replacer is going to be a bit behind from whole milk. But often you'll see that there is some oils, something like palm oil, for example, is included to correct that situation. An additional benefit for calf milk replacer is that other additives can be added to the powder to improve calf health, to make calves better at fighting off certain infections potentially, and easier for them to correct their gut health after they've gone through maybe a scour. Also, what's important is that when calf milk replacer is made up the same every day, the consistency of it doesn't change. Whereas with whole milk, consistency, especially in early lactation, the consistency of whole milk will change on a daily basis, which doesn't really benefit the calf's digestibility of that whole milk. An additional problem with whole milk is potential contamination with bacteria. Normal bacteria that are in the environment of the cows, or that could be from a mastitis infection in a cow, obviously. But bacteria such as E. coli, Salmonella and Listeria are quite often found in whole milk samples without any symptoms in the cows themselves, but they could affect calf health. Obviously, pasteurizing whole milk will help in reducing that bacterial load, but a pasteurizer is a fairly large investment to make on farm, and in high bacterial loads, they will not be able to eliminate all of the risk to the calf. Obviously, a lot of farms would like to use non-saleable milk to feed the calves. And the problem with waste milk going to calves is that quite often the bacterial load in that milk is even higher, or that there are antibiotic residues from animals that are under treatment. Now, the antibiotics, there's two issues with that. One, they make the milk less palatable for the calves, so they might not actually consume enough milk in a day because they don't like the taste of it. And secondly, those low levels of antibiotics that are in the milk as residues will actually cause antibiotic resistance in bacteria that normally can be fought off with antibiotics in those calves. And a good example there would be E. coli, which is being monitored to find antibiotic resistance, and quite often that would be associated with feeding waste milk to calves. From a cost point of view, on average, a 20 kilo bag of calf milk replacer if made up to the same dry matter level as whole milk, will produce 160 litres of milk that can be fed to the calves. So it's actually a fairly easy calculation to make to see how much would 160 litres of saleable milk fetch you compared to the cost of one bag of calf milk replacer. I hope you found that useful. If you want any more information on any of that topic, please talk to your local Glanbia representative or log on to glanbiaconnect.com.